look at the SEC, the whole part of the SEC baseball. Let's look at LSU's next opponent and what they did. Auburn. They went on the road. I think that they surprised everybody and took 2 out of 3 in Columbia, South Carolina. South Carolina, I know both of us are very high on them. And good for them because they didn't move one bit in the polls. They're still the number 3 team in the country. They have number 1 RPI in the country. The top 3 RPIs are South Carolina, Kentucky, and LSU. But Auburn starting to play really good baseball at the right time. They still are on the bubble. They probably need to get to that 14 to 15 SEC win mark if they want to feel good about their chances. But Auburn's offense is raking. They score like 40 runs in the past 2 series against South Carolina, Mississippi State. The next team that we'll talk about is Tennessee. They continue their sweep as well. Last weekend, they swept Mississippi State. This weekend, they swept Mississippi State. But last a top 5 team in Vanderbilt. So are you starting to see some 2022 Ole Miss vibes from the Tennessee team?
Yeah, I certainly do. I think that they're getting hot at the right time. We knew they had the talent, but they did have a lot of roster turnover, and their pitching is trending in the right direction. And I think that as you're seeing some of these other teams lose guys to injury and just guys losing their command, Tennessee's starting to hone it in. So I think Tennessee could easily win the SEC tournament. I think teams like South Carolina and LSU have more talent and potential overall, but I would not want Tennessee lined up across from me in the bracket.
Yeah, I mean, this Tennessee offense is really going forward. I think that what Tennessee was struggling on in the first couple of SEC series, their starting pitching was really rusty out the gates. Chase Dolander, like the first SEC weekend of the year, we saw them get swept by Missouri. And then after that, they just kept on, they lose a series to LSU. They lost a couple of series in between. But now you're starting to see this Tennessee team start to play like, they were the number 2 team in the preseason polls. I think that looking at the start of this season, they lost a couple of guys, most of their starting roles in the starting lineup. But when you were looking at this team 1 through 3, looking at their starting pitching, I think what's really changed is that they moved Chase Burns into the bullpen. He's pretty much their closer. I think that's what's really going to set them up for a deep run. So Tennessee's right now, I don't think if you had to ask not going to host, they can definitely play their way into hosting. They're 10-11 overall in the SEC. They probably have to get to 17, 18 wins to be in that hosting range discussion. But you do not want to see this Tennessee team in your regional, especially if they're a 2 seed, especially with a guy like Chase Dolander leading off and you got throwing a game number 3. So the final question I have for you, and we'll close the book here on the SEC. When it's all said and done on Memorial Day weekend, whenever we have the selection show, how many and what SEC teams will get the national seed nod?
Well, I think I'll just count it out here as I go. I think LSU, South Carolina, and Florida and Vanderbilt are all probably locks. So that's 4. Arkansas is going to be right on that line. I think. Are you talking top 8 or top 16? Probably top 16, huh?
Top 8.
Top 8. Okay.
Yep.
I think just those 4 for the top 8. I think that Wake Forest will snag a spot. I think you'll see a mid-major like in East Carolina or a UConn. I saw they were in the top 10 now. I think
Coastal Carolina's the top 10 team too.
Yeah, I think that at least one of them will slide in there. And then you could see Arkansas slide up there. But I'm sure I'm missing like Stanford or somebody that, a good West Coast team as well. So I'll give 4 of the 8 to the SEC. What about yourself?
I think that the SEC is going to have probably half of those 8. That LSU, if they take care of business, they're probably going to be the number 1 overall seed. Now, the number 1 overall seed hasn't won the national championship since forever. So I don't know maybe LSU fans would rather want the number 2 seed, but if you take care of business, then you're going to be the number 1 seed. I think that Florida is going to be in there as well. South Carolina is going to be in there. I think that Vanderbilt. I think there's going to be 5. I think that Arkansas, if they take care of business as well, they still have some tough series going ahead. I still think that they have to play South Carolina to finish off the year as well. So I think that there's going to be of the 8, and that would just be insane. Your other 3 would probably be Coastal Carolina, Forest, and then probably one of the Pac-12 teams, whether that's Stanford, maybe, and USC pops up in there as well. So it's definitely going to be a loaded SEC. I would not be surprised if we see half of the field be SEC in Omaha as well. Just how good this conference has been this year. Even with the bottom teams, that is surprising as well. Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And those 2 teams just won a national championship as well. So this conference has just been loaded.